Today I'm going to go over a monster sighting that happened in the 1960s in upstate New York. Then I'm going to cover other similar sightings of what cryptozoologists believe could be an animal that we thought was extinct. And this is going to be a 2 or maybe 3-part series. I have covered some of these sightings before, but that was a long time ago, and there are some other pretty awesome stories that I would like to add in this new series. In 1970, a letter was written by a 15-year-old boy to a cryptozoologist, John Kill. In this letter, this young man who wanted to stay anonymous stated that he and his family had been seeing these massive, unusual-looking creatures on and near their property. The first sighting they had happened 4 years prior to the writing of the letter, and this family had no idea what they were looking at, and since this first sighting, they've been seeing them on and off just roaming around their property. Now this letter describes a massive creature that was anywhere from 12 to 18 feet tall. It was covered in white hair, had a long tail, and could walk on 2 or 4 legs. This teenager stated, "I am writing because about 3 or 4 years ago, I saw a white monster in a swamp beside our house. I've been seeing these things ever since. One night, it came down in our yard. These creatures were massive, around 12 to 18 feet in height. They had long tails, and their bodies were always covered in white hair." Now, according to this letter, it wasn't just him and his family, but 2 of his neighbors also claimed to see them. And I believe there were at least 2 of them just walking around this area. And at the end of this letter, the young man stated, "I'm 15 years old, and I'm not kidding. I have seen these things, they are real." Now John, as a cryptozoologist, had an open mind, but of course he must have been skeptical. I bet the first thing he did was look up this town in upstate New York. And to his surprise, he learned that this town, Sherman, is a remote swampy area. So I guess John believed that it could be possible that a creature as big as this could still be hiding from us in this area. Now John decided to add this sighting to one of his books, called The Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings. And after this book was published, this sighting did get a lot of attention, as it makes us wonder, could this teenager really be telling the truth? Could there actually be a massive animal living in the swamps in upstate New York? And today this cryptid is known as the Beast of Sherman. Now while I was working on this video, I wondered, if someone was trying to fake a sighting and pull a fast one on John, why would they say they're 15 years old? Why not a 65-year-old World War II vet? It does seem that whoever this young man was being honest. But of course, if there was an animal this big just walking around, I'm sure a lot more people would have claimed to see it. But this letter does describe an animal that did once roam this area, and that animal is the Giant Ground Sloth. It's believed, according to archaeologists, that the Giant Ground Sloth lived in the Americas for 35 million years, and only just recently, around 10,000 years ago, it went extinct. Or so we believe, as there has been other reported sightings of giant ground sloths. The natives of South America have long told stories of an animal that they call the mapinguari, and the description of this creature, the mapinguari, is similar to that of a giant ground sloth, and natives have claimed to see the mapinguari when traveling deep in the Amazon. Now, unlike upstate New York, the Amazon is extremely remote. There are places to this day where man has never gone. And when scientists learned just how many natives have claimed to see this mapinguari, they decided to go on an expedition. But sadly, after months in the Amazon, they didn't see anything, but they did believe that it could be possible. There's also some Bigfoot sightings that cryptozoologists believe were actually giant ground sloths. In 1972 in Missouri, a 15-year-old girl heard her brother screaming his head off, so she ran to the kitchen window to see what the heck was going on. And she saw a huge hairy creature towering over her brother and holding what appeared to be a dead dog. And during this time, there were many other eyewitnesses who also claimed to see this animal. This was a mass sighting of a creature that nobody could identify. And today this case is known as Momo the Missouri Monster. And what makes this case unique is they did find massive three-toed tracks. And giant ground sloths did have 3 toes, or 3 claws, making this one amazing case. Then there was another case that happened in the 1930s when a fisherman told the authorities that a large creature killed his dog. It just ripped it to shreds. His wife, who saw this animal, said it was bigger than a bear, and she thought at the time that it might have been some sort of ape. And this woman wasn't the only one. This was another mass sighting of a large unknown animal. And at night, people were hearing these odd shrieking sounds coming from the woods. The locals were starting to get scared. So they formed posses and went out into the forest with their rifles in hand, hoping to hunt down whatever this animal was. And this creature was later known as the Boone Monster. And just like most mass sightings of a large unknown animal, this creature just seemed to vanish. Now this case happened in the 1930s, and Momo the Missouri Monster happened in the 1970s. And these two locations are not really that far away from each other. But could it be possible that a creature as big as the giant ground sloth could hide from us in this area? Now some believe that these two cases are actually Bigfoot sightings. But here's where things get a little more interesting. During the height of the Beast of Booneville case, a man walked into the newspaper's office and told him that he and his uncle were on a hunting expedition in Mexico when they captured a giant sloth. But this sloth escaped near Evansville 2 years earlier, and Evansville is not that far away from Booneville. Now there must have been some confusion, as the journalist believed that this hunter was talking about a regular sloth. He wrote that it was simply a giant sloth. So cryptozoologists like Lauren Coleman believed that these hunters might have captured a giant ground sloth. And these hunters even told the journalist that it was a giant sloth. A normal sloth would not be able to escape. It would take an hour just to cross the road. Nor would a normal sloth be able to rip a dog to shreds so easily. And one of the eyewitnesses even said that it was bigger than a bear. Then, just maybe around 30 years later, this giant ground sloth made its way to Missouri, where yet again it created a mass panic. And also, during the Booneville sighting, people saw an empty circus truck just hanging around close to the woods. So it seems that the circus was also after this animal. Maybe the hunters were going to sell it to him. Now some believe that this was just a hoax by farmers. And that could be the case. But the eyewitnesses' stories never changed. They believed that they saw a large animal that was unknown to them. And hundreds of people did claim to hear the shrieking coming from the woods. And this shrieking sound sent chills down their spines. There was also 2 dogs that died. A police dog came back so wounded that they had to put it down. But if this was a giant ground sloth, then giant ground sloths must be able to move fast. And that does make sense considering they did live side by side with short-faced bears, the biggest bears to ever walk this planet. If they were slow moving, like the sloths of today, then they probably wouldn't have been able to survive for 30 million years. And because of sightings like these, some cryptozoologists believe that they could still be alive to this very day. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned.